Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Word on the Street. Today I'm your host. My name is Kokin and I'm joined here by Adi and Chloe.
Hey guys.
So how have you guys been? How's your week been? What's happening?
My week has actually been normal, just working. I guess I'm just like some of the lucky few that are working right now, but yeah, it's not been too bad.
Yeah.
Mine's been good as well, just enjoying the holiday so far, and happy to go back into hustling.
Hustling
under lockdown, that's something that's needed.
Yeah,
but yeah, today we're going to be talking about body dysmorphic disorder. So I'm pretty sure you've heard about it as well. And before we dig into the discussion, I just wanted us to kind of do a little activity. So I want you to think of one attribute about yourself that you've been insecure about in the past or are still currently insecure about, and also another physical attribute about yourself that you think is like, this is it. This is my favorite physical attribute that I want people to see. I know God created you with so many physical attributes, but just choose your favorite one. So you can write it down or you can just think about it as we go through the discussion and then we'll come back to it, right? So digging into the discussion, what do you guys know about body dysmorphic disorder?
Well, for me, for sure, I know that it's when you as an individual, you're kind of fixated on one aspect of your body, something about you that either you don't like or stands out quite a lot, and you know that you've somewhat received negative feedback about that particular part of your body, so you become really, really fixated on that. It could be your skin, your face, anything really.
Yep.
Yeah.
And do you know anything about body dysmorphic disorder?
Yeah, just have similar views with Chloe, just being especially just focusing on one certain issue, or it doesn't have to be an issue, just one thing that you particularly don't like about yourself, just that's bothering you, and you're just constantly going back at it.
So I done like a bit of research before here, and the definition I came up with for body dysmorphic disorder, it says body dysmorphic disorder is a disorder characterized by extreme preoccupation with appearance that causes an individual personal distress in the presence of minimal or no physical defects. So basically what that means is people that experience body dysmorphic disorder are kind of picking a tiny flaw in their appearance, physical flaw, and they're dwelling on it so much that it grows from being an insecurity and kind of grows into something bigger that kind of leaves them they can't function in their everyday life. So they can't do normal social situation, maybe go meet up with friends or even go shopping for groceries, because that's something like, it's kind of, they feel like people are judging them when they see that, or they feel like they don't fit in, or people are undermining their kind of presence because of that tiny physical attribute that they don't like about themselves. And just to give you a few stats about body dysmorphic disorder, which is also termed BDD, about 2% of the population in the world is affected by this disorder, and it's mostly seen equally, to affect equally both men and women. So there's no kind of any bias. So both women and men, women and men are affected equally by body dysmorphic disorder. And also it's seen that when you're during your teenage years, so about 40% of the people affected by the disorder develop their symptoms, or the onset of the disorder starts when they're in their teenage years. So what do you guys think? Why is that the case? Why is it more prominent that between your teenage years, what's happening during those years for people to start developing these symptoms? Because your body is going through a lot of changes. So what do you think is the main issue that leads to this?
I think especially like as you said, as you grow older, and then you go, for example, from primary school, especially into secondary school, and that's when you meet even more people, and you yourself being used to only one specific group of people, the people you already know, you feel comfortable, but then you meet new people, you interact with others, and then you might start to look at them and you might see that, oh, this person looks
differently,
you know.
They look good.
Yeah, they look good, you know, they dress like this, so now you start to think, well, maybe I should be dressing like that, or I should be looking like that, you know, I should be doing this. And then I think that's where sometimes we like that's the problem that we might come across.
Yes, you're comparing yourself.
It's because I think during that age your body is going through so many changes, especially I know for being like a guy, you're kind of looking, some guys are developing quicker, they have muscles, they have this, they're tall, and you're like, wow, I wish I could be like that. And you're there walking around short, and you feel like no one is giving you the respect you deserve because you're not growing at a certain pace. And sometimes also the friends you have during that age, they tend to kind of, they're not very, and I'm speaking from a guy point of view, they're not very sensitive. They're quick to point out, like, oh, look at you, your nose is too big, innit? And stuff like that. They just like take it as tiny jokes, but eventually kind of affect you mentally, where you kind of start looking in your nose like, is my nose too big? And then eventually another person points it out, like, oh my days, my nose is too big. And eventually you start to think like, I can't go out in public, everyone is staring at my nose. So I think that age is kind of a bit where you're going through the most changes, and you're most easily affected by kind of the influences around you, and those thoughts will grow and manifest into something bigger.
Yeah. I think from like a female point of view, yes, I think I don't know, because even when you're like 11, you're already cautious of what you look like as a female. Even just as growing up, you know, you're pretty, all nice hair, everything. Like appearance plays such a massive part in a female's upbringing. Though sometimes we don't see like that, but it does play like somewhat of a major part. And when you reach your teenage years, now it becomes more prominent that you have to be beautiful, you have to be pretty, you have to be attractive. Somebody has to find you attractive. That's a time when it's a bit sad whereby, like, I mean, you're not necessarily gonna go out with anybody, but like you want people to appreciate how you look. And it's not even just from guys, it's other girls. That's the thing. Like you find, like, I look at myself, and when I was younger, like in my teenage years, I wouldn't do anything to impress other guys. It would be other girls, you know, because you want other girls to think you're pretty. You want other girls to like what you're wearing, how you're dressed. So it becomes very, like that thing that's just a part of your everyday life. So you're very conscious of every single thing. And at the time, obviously, being a female, you become quite sensitive to a lot of things. So if someone says they don't like your hair, next day you're just gonna change it because somebody said they don't like it. And the more people say that, the more real it becomes to you. And girls, no offense, can tend to be mean, especially when you're younger. We are very catty, so like you say whatever you want, and it's just like, oh, it doesn't matter because, you know,
it was whatever. So if I'm to ask you, when you guys were like at that age, I assume you went through something maybe similar. So were there any body image issues you struggled with? Or you're all kind of like, you know, you're the top 10 out of 10s, always looking banging all the time. So no issues for you?
No. For myself, I say it was my skin. Yeah, because my skin started breaking out a bit later, like when I was like 19, 20. And yeah, I think that really, really affected how I saw myself as a person and a sense of beauty. And I think that's when I started to wear makeup to try to cover that up, but everybody knows it doesn't work. Like, it makes your skin
if
worse.
You're buying the cheap stuff.
I mean, like, literally, I don't have money to be buying foundation that's worth like 50, 60 quid. So I think for me, that's one part of myself that I say that I really, really struggled with. And you can't really hide your skin. And I think a lot of people really struggle with that. Like, for me, my skin, like, any single thing, I would eat dairy, chocolate, and I loved all that stuff. At the time, I didn't know that's what was causing it. And my skin was horrendous for years. So for me, I never viewed myself as like a pretty person, or never viewed myself as like being, even if somebody told me, oh, you're really beautiful, I'd be like, oh, you're lying, you're just saying that to make me feel good about myself, because you know that I don't look like that. So I never really took on compliments well. Okay,
all right. So because of the way you felt like your skin was breaking out, that made you kind of feel like insecure, a little bit insecure about how you looked and how everyone viewed you. And is this sort of thing that kind of, if it's not dealt with or you don't talk about it with someone, it can eat you up and develop into something bigger. Did you have any?
I think when I was I was quite young, and me myself just being really tall, you know. It was, you could say quite...
How tall are you, just in case the people on the street can't see?
I'm 6'5", heading to nearly 6'6". And so, obviously, not in the younger 7, 8 years, I wasn't that tall, but then, let's say 10, 11, 12, you could see the difference. I wasn't the same like height as the everyone else around me, and you know, I was you know, especially when you're young, you don't want to like be different. You want to be part of the group, you know. You want
to like stand out.
Yeah,
so
you don't want to
much,
stand out at all. You know, you just want to be similar to everyone else. You know, what they're wearing, what they're saying, what like the way you look like. You know, if someone changes their hair, you know, you want to change your hair. You know, stuff like that. And I remember because I was quite tall and everybody was much shorter than me, I used to like slouch down because I was thinking, man, I'm standing out too much, you know, it shouldn't be like that, you know.
Literally standing out too much.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like I was just attracting, like, for me at the time, unnecessary attention, you know, like, why this guy's so tall, you know. But, you know, yes, it's...
But you grew to like your height.
Yeah, exactly. You know, at that time you particularly might not like it, but eventually you start to. It grows on you. You know, it's no pun intended. But yeah, you know, it grows on you, and then you get used to it. But then you start to appreciate this as being not a flaw, but you know,
it's part of who you are as a person. You start to appreciate that.
So what I'm hearing from both of you, these are things like you struggled with when you're kind of younger. Like you say your height, like you see people like when they're too tall at a young age, they're always like slumping down. Yeah. So as they get older, they kind of start to appreciate and kind of their mindset changes and all that sort of stuff.
But just on that, I think it's easier if, for instance, talking about height, because you know when you grow older, it's something that people are going to appreciate. Yeah. But then it's a lot more difficult if you know that that's not something that is necessarily appreciated within the social standards of beauty. So for instance, when you're talking about people with bad skin, you know, somebody is prone to having acne or they have eczema, and their skin is definitely not, you know, it's not fitting those beauty standards, those social beauty standards. Now, no matter how old you grow up, you know, that thing is not necessarily going to become out of nowhere the most beautiful thing. So it becomes even more difficult for you to appreciate and accept that. Now it's where it becomes a bit more personal for you, and it's about your mentality and how you think that now you just have to accept it as it is, even if it's not something that society would deem as beautiful or as perfect. Whereas for height, eventually now you know basketball players are like so tall. It becomes you become proud of the particular thing, but there are things you grow up and you never become proud of them. I'm
glad that you talked on to a few things that kind of most people associate with body dysmorphic disorder, kind of the body parts that they feel like are not attractive about them. And I just wanted to, a study done, basically identify what sort of things that men and women kind of tend to have issues with when it comes to their body. So men with body dysmorphic disorder tend to normally have issues with their height, hair, body proportions, and their genitals. So that seems to be kind of like a big group in men. I'm pretty sure every guy will associate one of these things in a certain point in their life. And women tend to have kind of problems, tend to have problems with hips, thighs, the buttocks, legs, breasts, and body weight. So these are kind of like the category of things that guys struggle with and women struggle with. And I do understand with the way that the body image is being portrayed on TV, how you need to look a certain way, how, I don't know, your waist needs to be a certain height for a certain weight, and your guys need to be a certain height. Like, those are real problems that people will struggle with because they don't fit in a certain bubble or in a certain kind of image for
like today's social standards
of beauty. And it's kind of a big thing. So this is why it comes to my point when I asked you guys to think of something you felt insecure about while you're young and you felt like you struggled with. What did you guys struggle with when you're young? I know you've mentioned your skin and you mentioned your heart. Is there anything else that you may have felt quite insecure about while you're young? I'll go first. So I'll go first, right? Like, since as you guys are still thinking. So when I was quite young, I felt insecure about my weight. So I was quite skinny, like I was like a stick. Like I knew I was, and I guess it didn't seem like much of a big deal until I guess I was going into high school. So reaching that range where you're kind of gonna be around lots of people, that people started pointing it out, but not in a way where like, oh, you're small, like even this, I don't like using the word skinny. I prefer like using slim or petite, because skinny just has bad connotations for me. So people would point it out and like, oh, you're so skinny, oh, you're this, look at that, your legs are like this size, are like chopping sticks or chopsticks and all that stuff. Don't chop like chopsticks and all that. And for me, I would just smile it off and just like ha 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 ha, and then just go away. But deep down, I was like, this sucks. Like I can't believe like people keep on mentioning this over and over again. It got back to the point where I'll be going somewhere and I'll wear like 5 layers of clothes. Like I have like a t-shirt and a jumper and a t-shirt. There's a jumper like so that I don't feel like I'm skinny. And every time I walk past the mirror, I'll be like checking to make sure like I'm the same size as the person next to me. And it was bad that I would be in a room that's like 30 degrees and I'll still not take off any layer. I'm afraid that someone will feel like, will say, oh, you're skinny, stop being like, I kept on looking at my hands and all that stuff. And I feel like that done a number on my like,
your mentality.
On my mentality. Because even right now, like I look at myself, I don't know, maybe I'm not as skinny as I was then, but I'll still look at myself and I still see that skinny boy in my head. And it takes someone telling me that, oh, look, you put on weight, you don't look that small. And I'm like, really? Because I feel like I look like that. So that's something I really struggled with. And one of the reasons, obviously, it motivated me to, start working out, do gym and all that stuff and start getting into sports so that I can bulk up a little bit. But that's one of the things I struggled with. Surely I was in a position where I was able to get over it, because some people may struggle to get over that sort of mentality and kind of break out of it and start to realize that I am who I am and I can try to improve myself, and if I can, I still need to love myself for who I am. Yeah. So that's kind of my experience when I was that age and one of the struggles I went through. So I don't know if you guys have.
I'll say for myself, it's pretty much it's the same thing. Like, just naturally, we're just small, slim people.
Yeah, our family.
Our family. Literally our
family. Genetics.
They're not on our part, like at all. So naturally, we're just like quite slim people. And for me, it was the same issue. Even now, because even now, people still say I'm skinny or I'm too slim and stuff like that. And I have pretty much heard quite mean comments, not necessarily the nicest comments from people. I mean, there's times whereby people, say, oh, the wind is going to blow you away, which I might say, it's not like it hasn't happened, but you don't necessarily want to hear that all the time. Or, somebody, I think I was coming back from uni, came back home and meet up with someone, and literally they looked at me like, wow, you're so skinny, you look like an AIDS patient. And I was just like, it's mental, like it's being mental. Or someone hugging you and they're like, wow, it's like I'm hugging air, there's nothing there. And those comments, though they can seem funny in the moment, they really do hurt. And you as a person start questioning, oh wow, so should I actually start gaining weight? And eventually at some point I was like, oh my goodness, forget it. Because there's no way, like my body can, unless I start eating unhealthily, there's no way my body's gonna gain weight like that. That's impossible. So I just came to a point where I was like, instead of trying to fight it, just embrace and accept it. And even people say, you're so skinny, you look like an ironing board. I'm like, thank you so much. I appreciate these are literally all comments I've heard from people. Like, I look like an ironing board, I look like this,
we laugh about it now, but in that moment, we need to be.
It's not funny.
We need to be more aware of what we say, because you don't know what someone is struggling with, and with someone with body dysmorphic disorder, if you don't watch what you say, that person is gonna go and think about it, and it's gonna push them further and further deeper into their own
like sort of like depression and anxiety over what they actually look like. But it's all about like thanking God, because you just need to learn yourself as a person. Like, you know what, this is something about myself that I cannot change, and it will take years of me changing it. You're literally going against your own genetics, against your own build, against your own DNA to change this particular thing, and you can't. And that's the point where you just sort of accept it as is. Like, if I'm skinny, so be it. Like, I'm not, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm healthy. That's what matters. And that's what matters to me. And as long as I'm healthy, that's enough. And that's why I draw the line. Yeah.
To be honest, I would have to side with you on this as well. Just side as well, just being, I grew up skinny as well. And, at the beginning, I wasn't really that much aware. When I was quite young, I was skinny. Everybody grows up that way. But like growing up, maybe especially when joining secondary school, looking at others and seeing how they're looking, and feeling like when I put on some clothes, I'm just like, even though they fit me, I'm like, drowning. They're loose, they're loose.
Just drowning inside your
exactly. And, as I mentioned, especially being tall as well, being tall and skinny, getting all comments like, oh, the BFG, big family giant, or, so it's, as you mentioned, people that have, BDD, you have to be careful, because you might laugh it off at the beginning, saying it's a joke.
It's in the name of banter.
Yeah, exactly. But then when you hear it again and again, it's again repeated on, and somehow it gets ingrained in your mind, and it definitely, maybe not the beginning or like the first couple of times, but you really start feeling like, where is yourself, is this how I'm actually am, and then you start thinking, oh, should I change the way I look, or what I'm doing, because I remember, as I said, you don't want to stand out too much, because you're going to attract all the attention. And sometimes you don't want that, Probably now you might want to look different, look at me, I'm doing this, or I'm doing that, But then you're not thinking like that, So, definitely.
It's great, and you said something very important about but it's a venue, Chloe, where people want to change themselves and how they look because of that certain defect, and it does happen. About 70% of the people suffering from BDD are either considering of underwent some form of cosmetic surgery to try and kind of change that specific thing that they don't like about them. It may be kind of some people, their nose, their lips, their I don't know, their breasts for girls. I don't know, even guys, maybe they do like pecs or something like that. I've seen where people have maybe 6-pack, they get things implanted. They've gone through some form of cosmetic surgery to try and kind of take away that defect. And studies show that only about 10% of the people with BDD that go through cosmetic surgery are actually satisfied with their results at the end. So it's not like changing that defect, which kind of helps them mentally to get over it. It's kind of something that you need to kind of actively work on and try and change. And one of the treatments for BDD, I think for most mental illnesses, cognitive behavior therapy, which is basically reprogramming how you think and you see yourself and how you feel about yourself. And this leads me to the next question, which I asked you guys one favorite physical attribute about yourself. I know God blesses everyone with tons of physical attributes. Just kind of choose one that you feel like is your favorite physical attribute. It could be your smile, your eyes, So, what's up with you, Adi?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, on speaking on height, it is actually height because even though, as I mentioned at the beginning, I used to think it must be a flaw. You know, why do I have to look like this when everybody else is looking like that?
Duck underneath the
Yeah,
doors.
exactly. Why are my feet sticking out when I'm trying to sleep? You know, and the cover's not like covering my feet. You know, and but yeah, now like. My height, I just enjoy it now. It's not like because I get to look down on people or anything. No, like I'm being serious now. But no, it's because, I mean, as I said, you're looking to be different from others as well.
Okay.
This might just be inherited, but you know, it's not only in inherited things that you stand out just by the way you act or the things you say, how you think, you know. So now I see it as an advantage, and I just try and, or as a benefit, you know, and I try to take advantage of it as much as possible. Or, for example, when I like exercise sports or just when.
I think so. Your height is kind of like a full 180.
Yeah,
around
exactly.
the way you think about it. Okay, that's quite good. Chloe, any? You don't have anything that you feel like?
I don't know, like, not really. Like, I don't hate myself. Just to put it out there. But I don't think that there is like, I don't know, like one particular thing I'll be like, yeah, you know, I really, really love that. Like, I don't think there's one particular thing I've like not thought about either changing
so you just
or
have
doing.
a lot of things to choose from. I'm your brother, so I'll tell you one thing, right? It's your smile. You have a really good smile. And even Eddie agrees.
That is...
Even Eddie agrees, like, you have a good smile.
That is odd because, I don't know, like, see, that is one thing I did not like about myself.
See, so the reason why I say this, right, is because we need to start acknowledging the physical attributes about ourselves that are good. Even with people with BDD, they need to be encouraged, kind of acknowledge those physical attributes that are good about themselves, like the positive ones, and stop focusing on the negative ones. Because you may have one small defect, but you have 100 good ones. So we as a people, you need to also tell those people, if we start giving each other compliments, I'm like, oh, I like your smile, I like your eyes. So you may think like your smile is not, you hate your smile, but if enough people tell you they like their smile, surely that's going to change your mindset, how you think. Like maybe me hating my smile is just in my head. 20 people today alone have told me they like my smile. So we need to kind of acknowledge the positive things about ourselves, kind of the good things, like, oh, I like my height, I like my hair, I like my teeth and all that stuff. And also we need to get in the habit of telling people that, because I feel like in this culture there's so much negativity going out. When you talk to someone or you're going to talk about someone's appearance, it always seems to be something negative. It's not enough times it's a positive thing. You're like, oh, I don't like their nose. You don't go to someone where you're like, oh, I like your nose. Oh, I like your eyes. So we need to get into that sort of mindset where we're kind of encouraging each other and kind of pointing out the positives on each other's body and appearance, and acknowledging what God has done, created. So in a Bible verse, one of my favorite Bible verses in the Bible.
Wow.
Genesis chapter 1 verse 27 says, so God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. He created them. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. God created you in his own image. In his own image, you created you. Who's like the best looking person? It's God, obviously. So if he created you in his image, your beauty counts for something. And another one comes from Psalms chapter 139 verse 14, and it says, praise you because I am fearful and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that fully well. Isn't that good? You are fearfully and wonderfully made. And if you are fearfully and wonderfully made, then there's no defect in you. In God's eyes, there's no defect. So if we're trying to look at each other through the worldly lenses, or at each other through the worldly lenses, we are always going to find defects, because nothing in this world is perfect. Sin came into the world and nothing was ever the same. But if we look through the eyes of God, if we look at ourselves as God looks at us, He says we're perfect. And He says we're wonderfully and fearfully made. And by that definition, we're perfect in the eyes of God. We shouldn't focus on what the world's definition of perfection is, because that will always be imperfect because of sin. Or what are your thoughts on that?
That always changes as well. Like when you look at society, our idea of beauty has changed every single century. The idea of beauty literally changes. So I like that verse because it affirms you as a person, that I don't have to look at myself the way the world sees me or the way I see myself, but rather, you focus on how God sees you as an individual, and how God perceives you as an individual. And it's the idea that, God doesn't make mistakes. And when it comes to appearance, that DNA and how it formed, those are not mistakes. And, when you look at yourself, especially with people who suffer from BBD, and they are trying to accept themselves for who they are, is that constant reminder that, God doesn't make mistakes, and this is a part of myself. And what exactly is God trying to teach me? Maybe I have to learn how to love even more, and love other people even more. And also it's the idea that we as people, for those that do not suffer from BBD, or those who have such high esteem of themselves and their appearance, we need to be very watchful of the things that we say and do, especially online. I think online people can say whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, without actually having to think too much about it. So I think it's that constant reminder that, people are fearfully and wonderfully made. As much as I want to be loved, I should love somebody else as well.
I would have to agree, just because, as you said, a lot of people just, especially, like all generations, you don't need to be just a teenager or a young people, even old people just sitting behind their keyboards and just writing away,
keyboard warriors.
The keyboard warriors, exactly, and, as you said, some people might have so much esteem, like of themselves, high esteem, to be able to bring others down, others who might not be at the same, their self-esteem might not be as good, just because of the things that they've gone through while growing up, and it's definitely, it's hard when you've got like a lot of people going against you, and you're trying to improve yourself, and it's not an easy journey. And as you mentioned, I think you were talking about classes on the, what was it?
Classes on the what? Did I say it in this conversation?
No, earlier. It was trying to be able to speak to someone who can understand you, especially maybe let's say for a counselor.
Behavioral therapy.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was. Sorry. Like a counselor or a psychologist, trying to get someone who can understand you, help you, guide you, be there for you when you need them, because to do it all by yourself is not easy,
No,
and especially when you have so many people that are against you, just being by yourself is not easy. And this thing is like easier said than done, but I was thinking about like, instead of agreeing to like every comment that other people are making towards you, trying to just ignore them, even though, as I said, it's easier said than done. Trying to focus yourself on improving as much as you can, towards this area. And rather than giving those people who are against you, your energy, which you could be using for something better, use it to, as much as possible, to change yourself and build yourself up, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
It's almost like half selective hearing.
Yeah.
Have selective hearing.
Yeah,
Literally.
It's true. BBD is not something that is to be taken lightly. It affects a lot of people, and it affects people's life. People can't communicate properly. They can't see their friends properly. They can't kind of do normal social things properly because of these defects that they have they feel like they have, and are stopping them. I think are making people think that they're judging them. So they're making those people with BDD think that everyone is looking at that one particular thing on their head. But it's good to remember that if you're suffering from BDD, you need to remember that there's lots of areas to go and seek for help. You can seek counseling, you can talk to a friend, just talk to someone and don't suffer alone. And also remember that in God's eyes, you are made perfect. God does not make mistakes. So that defect that you think is bad about you in God's eyes is just perfect. And with that, on that note, I'd like to thank everyone who's watching and listening, and thank you guys for participating in this discussion. Hopefully we can have you back soon.
Okay, thank you.